everybody. I'm Stacy Archer with the Chef's Challenge. This is where we meet once a month at FIU's kitchen, and we bring in an award-winning chef, and we challenge that chef to come up with a recipe that's simple, uses minimal ingredients, and can feed a family for under $20. This is all in support of Camillus House and the supportive permanent housing they have at their homestead location called Verde Gardens. We enjoy cooking with these families, teaching them how to get a healthy, affordable meal on the table every evening. So here we are with Chef Victor Santos.
Thank you.
And we're also with Sasha Stats. Sasha Stats is actually the owner of Tinta y Cafe with 2 locations here
Correct.
in Miami.
Two.
And Chef Victor is Director of Culinary Operations for Tinta y Cafe.
That's correct.
So let's dig in. What is it we're going to be making today?
So today we're making a Cuban style chicken sofrito, chicken fricassee with a bell pepper and tomato sofrito. Very simple, very affordable, and everybody can make this. There's really no secret, and you will see with the progress of the class, minimal ingredients, just quality food that we try to do at Tinta and bring it to your table as well.
Great. So let's get going.
Yes.
What's the first step? We've got our chicken thighs. If you all have your meal kits in front of you, you can have some chopped chicken thighs, wings, breast. We have the skin on. It's already been dried with a paper towel.
Yeah, so we just want to make sure that we really dry up the chicken. So you get a nice sear, and it's an important step because you want to get the skin nice and caramelized, and you don't want to have the excess water on your way when you sear something. You might have chicken thighs. We had a whole chicken and we just chopped into 8 pieces. If you do have chicken thighs, if they're boneless, just keep that in mind because it's going to be a little bit faster your cooking time. We have bone in, so it'll take 20, 25 minutes, depending on how our heat goes. But let's get this started. So I'm going to take some towels and really pat dry both sides of the chicken. And also I will season them. And on the recipe, you have the seasoning. Now, we're doing black pepper, salt, and oregano, a little bit of cumin, and garlic garlic powder. Let's say you don't like cumin, some people don't, you don't like too much pepper. That becomes your preference on how you're going to season this. We're trying to keep as traditional as possible, so that's why we're keeping those seasonings, but it doesn't have to be necessarily those.
So we have salt, pepper, oregano, cumin, and what am I missing?
The garlic powder.
Garlic powder.
Okay.
Okay.
Now here I have the pot already heating up because you do want to have a hot surface to sear this. Otherwise, you're not going to create that golden brown layer that we look for. And I'm using kosher salt, deliberately seasoning the chicken from a good amount of distance and really sprinkling and showering the chicken with salt. Now, you might think it's too much salt, but trust me, it's not. And I know on the last class, there was that discussion.
Yes.
Okay. It's important to season your food. And we use kosher salt because we have a better control, but also it's like Chef Norman said, less salty. So we start first with the salt and pepper. Okay. If you like peppery, you go heavy on it. If you don't like so much pepper, then you go lighter. Once we have that, then we can go cumin.
And cumin's got a really unique taste to it. How would you describe it?
Earthy, smoky,
Smoky, yeah.
really nice. And it just makes the whole base of the dish come together. Very traditional Cuban cooking. You'll see cumin being used widely. Okay, once I have the cumin, I'll go a little bit of the oregano.
And these are dried herbs.
Dry, yeah, those are dry oregano leaves. For seasoning, we recommend dry, not the fresh herb, just because
It won't
then
really
you
stick.
won't really stick to
It
it.
won't stick to it. Plus, it needs to take on the heat.
Right.
Exactly,
And-
exactly. And then
Right.
finally, garlic salt. Now, I love garlic. You
Yeah.
know, it can
The more
never
the
be
better.
enough. But it's up to you again, how much or how little you want to use.
So just a tip real quickly for our families. We're using chicken thighs in your meal kit because that is a less expensive form of chicken as opposed to a white meat breast. So when you're shopping in the grocery store and you're trying to make that dollar spread as far as possible, look for options like chicken thighs, chicken legs, or as what Victor has done here, he has bought a whole chicken and then gone ahead and cut it up. You can save money that way too.
That's correct. And the good part about that is once you cut up the chicken, you have the chicken carcass, the chicken bones, which you can
You
make
can make
broth out of it, which is delicious. And a good way to start your chicken noodle soup, so on and so forth.
Right.
So once the pan is hot, we're gonna add some olive oil.
Could they use like sazon completa instead of doing this as well? As
Right.
Like a
You
easier
can,
way?
you can. It's always your preference, right? You want to use something that you like. If they want to use sazon completa, just be aware the salt content.
Right.
It's a little high, despite the amount of salt that I use. So I'm gonna go down and start searing the chicken, and we have a nice long pan that we can fit 4 or 5 pieces. That's very important to at home. You don't want to overcrowd your pan. If it fits 4 and no more, don't put the extra piece in there, just because you start creating steam and not really gonna have a sear. We're gonna sear about 2 minutes on per side, and then we're gonna flip it over. And we also gonna do remove. Once we sear all the chicken, we're gonna remove, and then we're gonna build the dish on that flavor. Basically, we're creating everything into this pan, and we're gonna finish everything into this pan. Maybe in the meanwhile, while I sear the chicken, we can get the rice started.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so for the rice, you're gonna need the 2 cloves of garlic and 2 cups of rice. So we're gonna, let me grab the,
And we've taken shortcuts with rice before in our cooking classes for families who are pressed on time and don't have the ability to make rice from scratch, although it's relatively easy, as Sasha can show you. But you can also buy some microwavable packages of rice. There's always ways to kind of get around and make life easier for you.
The
so
good thing about the rice, if you're doing from scratch, you can add some flavor. So we're adding a couple of garlic cloves, and
So-
like I said, I like garlic. And we're just mashing the garlic cloves because we can pull it out at the end, and it basically just gives in all the flavor, but not the you don't get to bite into a piece
Right.
of garlic.
So once you smash the garlic, we're gonna add a little bit of oil to our pot, and we're gonna saute the garlic and the rice together so that it's evenly coated in the oil, and it kind of gives it a little bit more flavor. So if you want to give it like 2 minutes so that the oil gets infused with the garlic, that way it gives you a little bit more time to check on your chicken. And if it's ready, you can transfer it out into a bowl.
Right. And you can see here, you have the overhead, right? You got a nice color on one side. The chicken is not cooked at this point. It won't be cooked
Yeah.
fully until later when the whole dish comes together. But here, you're starting to build your layers. You're starting to build your flavors into the whole dish. So I got basically 2 minutes on those pieces of chicken. I'm going to remove, put aside, just finish doing those last 3 pieces. And then we're gonna make the sofrito.
Great. And again, just to remind you, we're cooking in batches because we didn't want to crowd the pan. it ends up preventing it from getting that nice crispy texture on top. As Victor said, it actually creates more steam than a sear. So we're doing it backwards.
Correct. And also, if you don't want to have the skin on, you can remove the skin. Some people are very health conscious, and it's correctly so. So removing the skin will not affect the overall dish. It will actually just be a little bit healthier.
Yeah, a little bit healthier, and that's always a big tip. But I have to say, I like the skin.
Right.
I love the
Yeah.
flavor
It
you get
also
from the skin.
builds the flavor
It
also.
does.
Right.
And although the chicken thigh tends to be cheaper, it's way more flavorful in my opinion. So it's definitely a better option.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to have the hassle of cutting the whole bird, please go chicken thigh. It's juicier. It's more flavorful. So yeah.
And here's a little tip I've learned, is that if you go to a grocery store that has a fairly decent meat department, the butchers are going to cut up your chicken for you if you ask. Always ask with a smile and please, but I find that I'm not very good at cutting up a whole chicken myself, but I can get one from the meat department and have them cut it up for me.
So we have already the sear on one side. Just gonna wait a little bit more to remove those pieces, and then we're gonna start building the dish right here on the top. Because we are searing, I would not recommend to do like a slow cooker, because you can get that sear on a slow cooker. But this is something that once you get the sear on, if you get the vegetables and you transfer everything into a slow cooker, that's something that they could do it in the morning and then.
Yeah,
Correct.
or if you like chicken breast also, you can cut it up into bigger pieces and put everything in, and then by the time you're home,
So
it's
it's a
ready.
real versatile dish.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
I'm gonna grab 3 cups. Yeah,
4.
4. Excuse me. Okay, so the rice is already coated in all of the olive oil, and the garlic is nice and toasty. So now I'm gonna add, it's 2 cups of rice, so I'm gonna add 4 cups of water. I'm gonna bring it to a boil, and then I'll cover it and bring it down to a simmer.
Now on this pan, you're gonna have some brown pieces, and this is exactly what you want.
You want that.
You do want that because that's what's gonna make the.
Don't take this pan over to the kitchen.
No.
Use that.
And you also have some residual fat from the chicken, also from the oil that we added on. You might want to add like a touch. In the recipe, called for a quarter cup. You can do so. We'll lower the heat down. Now we use high heat to do the searing, but for the vegetables, lower it a little bit.
Let's see if we have any questions so far. How's everybody doing out there? Alessandra, do we have any chat questions for us? Are we doing well?
So far, so good. I'm running a little behind with my recipe, but the chef is very fast. He's excellent at this. But people are really liking the tips that you're giving about not overcrowding the pan. I think we've all done that before, so we really like those tips.
Yeah,
I've done it.
Yeah, it's important. It's an important tip. So I lower the heat, and now we're gonna bake our sofrito.
Right, so if you see like with the overhead, you got a bunch of nice little crunchy bits from the skin. So we wanna take that out and build on top of that for the stew. So we're gonna start with the onion.
And how much onion is this?
This is a whole onion, just diced into small dice.
And now we're adding.
Bell pepper,
whole bell pepper,
and then
a red one,
a red
and also a green one.
Okay, and you diced them pretty small. You took the seeds out and you gave it a pretty small dice.
Yeah, so
Correct.
typically, like if you wanted to cook a little bit longer, you can definitely do a larger cut. That way it takes a little bit longer to cook down. But if you're in a rush, or if you kind of want to speed things up a little bit, then definitely you can cut it a little bit smaller. And sometimes my grandma, especially, she would mince it in a food processor.
Right.
So if you're in a bind, that's like go-to
Right.
Sofrito hack. And you can also freeze it and use it for other stuff.
That's a good tip too.
So-
Absolutely. So Sasha, you mentioned your grandmother, but we need to talk about your mother and your uncle.
That is true.
They started Tinta Cafe, what, in 2015?
2015.
Right. So it's been around Miami for some time and it's built quite the reputation. It's known as a great coffee shop. I was there just the other week and I had a cafecito. And then they're known as great coffee shop, but also great sandwiches.
Thank you. Yeah, so we tried, at least my mom had an idea to open a coffee shop that was European inspired, but had just really good ingredients and really good quality, pretty much everything down to coffee, the milk,
Right.
the prosciutto that we buy. So I think that's kind of what sets us apart is our whole idea is to kind of like slow down and take a minute and enjoy what it is that
Right.
you're eating or
Right.
sipping or whatever it
Right.
might be. But yeah, so I added a little bit of salt and pepper. The salt also helps kind of release the moisture from the vegetables. So you'll start to see that there's a little bit of liquid forming on the bottom of the pan. I'm gonna,
We are increase the heat a
right,
little
just
bit,
a little bit.
just so we get the steam, the moisture from the vegetables out. We want to have pretty much a dry pan before we add the white wine. Now, folks at home, if you don't have the access for the white wine or cooking wine, obviously you want to try to use something in the kitchen that you would drink. But if you cannot afford water, it's fine. This is obviously going to elevate the dish a little bit, but it's not something that will make or break. Remember, we have a good amount of spices. We have a good amount of vegetables in there that will give a very nice base to hold the whole dish. The wine just puts basically a cherry on top.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's 1 cup of wine.
That
you're
is
doing?
1 cup
Correct.
of wine.
And so you could substitute a cup of chicken broth, even as Chef Victor just said, a cup of water. Obviously, the more flavor that you develop, the stronger the taste is going to be.
Correct.
So, Chef Victor, tell
Yes.
us a little bit. You're from Brazil.
Yeah, born and raised in Brazil. Came to the States when I was about 20. Did culinary school here. Worked my way through kitchens. Had my own business. From fast casual to fine dining. I've done a good amount of all of that. And recently joined Tinta Cafe as a culinary director. And have been having one of the best experiences so far from, we were talking a little bit early, being in the kitchen for so long, you get used to the late nights and, the very lack of sleep that chefs. And this has provided me a good reverse where, I'm up early and we're out early and it's a good transition for me and it has been nothing but less.
Right, right. Well, because you serve breakfast
Yes.
and great coffee, and
Yes.
wonderful sandwiches.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you're now getting up a little early.
Yeah, which is great. It helps a whole lot of things.
Hey, but if you can go home before sunset, it's
It is,
pretty great.
Even
it
better.
is,
Yeah.
it is.
Even better.
So here you already dried up most of the liquid from the veg. We're gonna add the wine. Okay.
Any other question, Alessandra?
Yes, we have somebody asking if you can use a cup of beer instead of wine.
Yes, beer is
Definitely,
fine.
yeah.
Go for it. All the better.
Yes.
Will
beer
that
is
change
fine.
the flavor of the dish?
A
ultimately?
little bit, of course. You're gonna get that yeasty flavor on the beer, especially if you use something that's hoppy. You're gonna get that profile. Is it gonna completely alter? No, it's not. It's gonna enhance, as opposed to using water or chicken stock.
So while this starts to cook down and evaporate a little bit, I'm gonna cut up these tomatoes here. And really, so since these are kind of cut to like a smaller dice, I'm gonna match that just so that it cooks at the same time. But like I said earlier, if you wanna cut it a little bit bigger so that it cooks at a slower time, and say you wanna, I don't know, help with homework or anything to do with the house, it definitely.
That's a good tip that Sashi's telling us too. When you're making a dish like this that's all going into one pot, you do want want to make sure that the measurements are about the same. So what she was saying is, you know, you don't want to throw in big slices of tomato along with small slices of onion. It's going to cook at different rates. So she's going to go ahead and make sure that it's comparable to what we've already put in the pot, just needs to be sliced more.
Yeah.
So I'm just cutting out the heart of the tomato because obviously we don't want to have this little rough piece. And then, like I said, I'll match the small dice.
An alternative for the tomatoes would be using a canned product. We brought it in just in case. But tomatoes, South Florida, now you get a good batch. Some local farms you can get really good quality tomatoes. So we encourage that.
Right. Use fresh food for sure.
But your canned tomato will do just fine.
So is it canned diced tomatoes?
Yeah, that's what we have.
Substitute?
If you're gonna substitute, I would do can and dice as we have it here.
Okay.
Also, if you're health conscious, like Victor said, they have ones that are less sodium. So again, like if you're gonna use sazon completa instead of making your own kind of dry rub, then you can counterbalance
Right.
with getting one that has less salt.
Great. So how many tomatoes if we're doing just tomatoes?
For
4.
4 tomatoes, and they're pretty nice sized.
there are
tomatoes.
good size. If you were to use a can, it's a 14-ounce can, 16-ounce can, depending on the brand.
Okay.
At the end of the day, these 4 tomatoes will give out just as much liquid as this can will do.
Right.
This is a little bit more concentrated, if you will. This will give out a good amount of water and will make up the good sauce.
So I have not really understood what sofrito means. Can somebody explain that to me? I've seen it, I've heard it in restaurants, but I don't think I've ever really grasped what is sofrito.
So sofrito pretty much is like the Cuban mirepoix. So mirepoix is celery, onion, and carrot. And in a way, this is the base for pretty much everything that we use in cooking. So it is a red bell pepper, green bell pepper, onion, and tomato.
Good to know.
And the
Great.
garlic.
And the garlic.
And the garlic.
Always garlic.
Yeah.
It's good for your heart health too.
What are some of the sandwiches that you have at TJ Cafe that are, you have a Cuban, I know that's like, you have a Cuban.
We do.
love.
So we have a few. We have our basically 2 Cuban style sandwiches are the Patria and the Noche Entera. It's basically the same sandwich. What changes is the bread. The Patria goes into a French baguette. The Noche Entera goes into a traditional medianoche roll. Aside from that, we have the Madurita, which is a bestseller. It has actually fried maduros inside.
It's very
delicious.
filling.
We have our signature Tinta Cafe sandwich that has prosciutto, the roasted red pepper. Those all have pork that we cook for about 12 to 14 hours.
Yeah.
And it just falls apart.
Right,
It's
very
so
tender. I've had one,
tender.
I know. for a
It's
fact.
so good. By this time now we have the pan almost dry. I'm gonna add the garlic.
So you don't want to add the garlic too early because since it is so small, it will cook off fairly fast and it has the potential of burning. So you want to add it just last and then have it kind of creep into the sauce a little bit.
All right,
Let's
yeah.
say like a minute.
Yeah, a minute, not even that. You don't want to have burnt garlic. That's one thing you don't
No.
want. If you notice on these overhead pot now, we already have the water coming to a boil. We're gonna reduce just a little bit. We don't have a whole lot of heat on this pan.
It's still not seasoned. So you
Okay,
can either
oh, yeah.
season
All
now
right.
or
That's
season
correct.
at the end.
I would season it now.
I
Okay.
would recommend also to season now.
So we use, I don't know, maybe a tablespoon of kosher salt on the right. And I'm gonna reduce the heat a little bit.
For everything.
Yeah. And I'm gonna cover. Now it's gonna steam and it should take you about 15, 20 minutes, not more than that. And then we can fluff it up with a fork once it's done. The good thing about this rice, if you use long grain, it's one part of rice, 2 parts of water, and there's no mistake. Unless obviously you have your pan on the highest heat, it's between 15 and 20 minutes. It should be ready. There's no mistake, and you're gonna get a good amount of flavor from the garlic that we added in. Some people also add a bay leaf into that. It's up to you.
Right.
We just added there the salt and the garlic because we love garlic.
Some people do garlic powder also. That's very normal to do. Some people do butter. You know, they finish it at the end. It's really just a preference.
But I like the mixture of flavors that you come up with in this recipe. Tell me a little bit about how you came to this recipe. When I came to you and said, Chef Victor, I need a recipe that's easy to make, it's budget friendly. How did you come to this?
So this is something that we offer at Tinta. Throughout the week, we do daily specials, and this is something that people go for it. People ask for it, and it's something that we offer. So we didn't want to deviate so much from what we do on a regular basis. Obviously, we wouldn't be here just to do sandwiches. We wanted to showcase a little bit
Right,
more
and
of our food.
And this is a beautiful picture of it, and also for our families who, you know, they want, isn't it there's butter?
Oh,
Oh my God.
that's the best
They
part
are.
about this. And if you know you come from a Hispanic background, and in general, like a stew is super comforting, and it's great because you don't only have it just once. Like you said, if there's leftovers, you can keep going with it. Like some people, you can shred the chicken, make a chicken pasta, something like that.
Right.
So now I'm just adding the fresh tomatoes. And so tomatoes have a lot of liquid. So you'll see that once like 2 minutes pass, it'll start to kind of make its own sauce. And at that point, I'll add a little bit more salt and pepper just to kind of help release the liquid from the tomatoes. And then little by little, it'll start to build on top of that.
In a little while, we're also going to add back the chicken so it cooks through. And again, if you're using something that has no bones, it'll be faster.
Right.
Right. So what is the total, I mean, as she's working with the Sofrito right now,
Yeah.
and we've already seared the chicken and it's been resting. How do you know your chicken's done? How long are you going to cook it for? I mean, it's dark meat.
It is
so
dark
it's gonna
meat,
take a
and
little bit longer,
but
right?
it's you will see when it's done. It will start coming off the bone, and obviously you don't want to have a dark spot, or if you were to do that, pull a piece out, you just gotta make sure that the juices run clear. That's a way to see, or to see, and then the ultimate would be tempering with a thermometer at 165 degrees.
Yeah, 165.
Correct. As you can see, the tomatoes hit the pan and they're already starting to give up
Yeah,
water.
notice that the sound is completely different. They're
Yes.
starting to break down a little bit.
Right.
So at this point, we're gonna go back in with the chicken.
So back into the exact same pot we
Yeah.
started in.
Yeah, yeah,
I like that. Fewer dishes.
yes, it is.
That
it
is my number one thing when I cook at home. One
Yeah,
pot.
kids, and you put them on shores, which I've been known to do.
Unfortunately, my niece and nephew are too small.
Oh,
They're trying, but
don't be there.
it's more of a hassle
Right.
at this point.
And you're making sure to get all the cheese.
Oh,
bits,
yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
don't
You want
waste
the-
any of that.
You want the flavor. You want the flavor.
Great.
Now you can cook this uncovered. It should be fine, because again, the tomatoes will give out a good amount of water and it shouldn't dry out. But we do have a cup of chicken stock that we can add on.
If it gets too dry.
Yeah.
So that's another helpful hint to everybody.
Right.
If you start noticing that your pot is getting too dry, don't be afraid to add a little bit more liquid to it. A little more beer, a little more chicken stock,
A
whatever
little
you're
water,
using.
whatever you got. Or the
Yes.
canned tomato
Or
itself
the-
also.
Correct. At the later part of the dish, we're gonna add potatoes to it. And notice how we brought the potatoes already diced and in water.
Right. So if you're cooking at home, you probably don't have this prepared yet, but you can go ahead and start peeling your Idaho potatoes.
Idaho
Maybe
potatoes.
Call for 2 of them in the
Two,
recipe.
correct. Correct.
Peel them and then dice them into what? Half-inch cubes?
Yes, they're about half an inch cube. Now, if you do that ahead of time and you keep it in water like we did, you can also use this water because it has all the
The
starch.
starch. in
It's
the
a starch water, right?
It will,
Point.
it will help on thickening this
Right.
stew.
Right.
So that's another tip that may be useful for folks at home. Whenever you do prep potatoes ahead of time, use that water that you have with the potatoes in to thicken
Right.
stews,
And the
soups, so on and so
reason if
forth.
you're gonna prep, I know this from my own mistakes in the kitchen, but you don't want your potatoes spinning out in the air.
Yeah, it
No.
just
Then they turn
ox-
the color.
they
right?
oxidize.
They oxidize, and so by putting them in water, you're saving them, you're preserving
Correct,
them.
correct.
I have a
And
quick
let's say
question.
you like potatoes with the skin on, it's fine. Just make sure you wash it really good, dice it, and put with the skin on.
Great. Alessandra, we have a question?
Let's say someone forgot to put the potatoes in the water. They still use those? Can someone still use those?
So in that case, I mean, they're gonna cook. They're just gonna be a little bit darker by the time they go into the cooking. Once they get cooked, they'll get cooked, but they will be on the dark side.
Right. Another time-saving tip, you can find potatoes that are already diced and in the section where you find your vegetables. You can find them frozen, or you can find them where you find hash browns. So not that I'm suggesting you do that, but if you're ever in a crunch for time, you can already get these already peeled, diced, and ready to go into your entree.
Correct, correct. And I wish the folks at home had the smell-o-vision.
Smell-o-vision? Yeah, it smells good.
It
Yes.
looks beautiful.
I am gonna
Yes.
lower it just a little bit because low and slow, everything tastes way better.
Okay. We can also add the bay leaf.
Bay leaf, correct. I have it here.
It does
It
flavor.
does, it does. Also, something that very Cuban.
Oh,
bay leaf
yeah.
To the beans, to the sofrito, to the stews and
Right.
the picadillos.
Yes,
so on and so forth.
it's part, it's along with sofrito, bay leaf is right next to it.
It's right there.
Yeah.
So good. Good to
And-
know. We're learning a little bit about Cuban food today. And I am telling you, this looks phenomenal, and we're not even done. I see we still have more ingredients. to go.
There is, and this is a little bit, let me see if it's picking up. Okay, so we have the olives, and, again, preference. We like the brininess that the olives will bring into this dish. Some, like Cuban picadillo, some people say if you don't have olives and raisins in it,
Yeah.
it's not picadillo. We brought to the fricassee just the olives because we believe it should be part of the dish. But if you don't like it, obviously
You don't
can
have to
omit
put it, right?
So these are green olives. I noticed they don't have the pimentos in it.
That's
Does
correct.
that matter? Or?
No, it's all preference too.
It's our
Okay.
preference.
It's
yes.
100% preference.
And
on
how much would you say you have
This is a cup of olives.
a cup of sliced green olives?
Sliced green
Okay,
olives,
great.
yes, yes.
And typically, like if you have the bottle and you like brininess, then you can throw a little bit of the brine in there,
too.
which also helps with the salt. You don't have to salt it. But yeah, ultimately, the base for this is the base for anything, really. You can
It
do it
could
with
be.
beef, you can do it with pork.
Yes, I mean, you taught us today, the families and myself, about sofrito, and knowing that you can make this type of base and add different types of meats. Or
Correct,
even keep it
correct.
meatless if
You
wish.
Yeah, correct.
Yes, correct too. You could do eggplant. You can do
idea.
chayote.
Yeah,
They go
or
really good with
zucchini,
Zucchini. The cooking time on zucchini or vegetables in general,
much lower, right?
A lot less.
Right.
As you can see, the rice, it's almost there. Because most of the liquid is gone, okay? So at this point, you can just shut it off and completely cover. The next 5 minutes, it'll finish cooking with the steam that there's inside. And right before we serve, we can fluff it up with a fork.
Nice.
So our rice is taken care of. Now it's basically
This is the baby.
taking care of this too, which is not far. It's not too far.
No.
Obviously, you want to make sure that the chicken is fully cooked. So you do want to keep an eye on that.
Also depends on how you like the consistency. So if you like it a little bit more on the soupier side, or if you want to kind of let it go and let the chicken and the chicken bone itself, if you have it bone in, kind of taken out the sauce. Sometimes you can do tomato paste also if you want to make it a little bit thicker. But for me, my favorite part of making this is the sauce. If you'll see me, I'll give everybody chicken and I'll have salsita with rice.
Correct.
Sounds wonderful. So how long has this chicken been cooking, would you say?
For the last 10 minutes or so. So we had basically at least 10, 15 more. You can cover to speed even things up. You can cover.
Okay.
This, if you do cover, it will retain a lot of the moisture.
Correct.
If you get uncovered, then
It'll evaporate a little
it'll
bit.
evaporate, and that's where the chicken stock will come for. At the very end, we're gonna add the potatoes just because they're tiny and they will cook very fast. And the last ingredient will be the frozen peas. You don't like cooked peas, you can substitute, you can add corn, up to you.
Yeah. There's a lot of versatility. with
There
this,
is,
and I think
there is.
It's funny, play around with it.
And the funny part is like this is a staple in Cuban cuisine. It doesn't matter, but everybody has a different way of making it. So it could be, if you're from a certain part, or maybe your grandma made it a certain way, and that's kind of like how people stick to it. So it's always fun to kind of like, compare your recipes to different people.
Correct. Any questions on the?
Yeah, how are we doing, Alessandra? Questions for us? She's busy cooking. She's managing the chat as well as cooking.
We are all good. No fires. We're doing well.
Good job.
Good.
It smells delicious. I just want to say that.
Good.
Good. So this is also when we mentioned healthier. You want something leaner. You can use turkey.
Oh, that too. Yeah. I also love making turkey fricassee, which a lot of Cubans make for Thanksgiving.
Yes.
They're not really into the whole turkey.
Right. But yes, there's many things you can do with this. What I particularly love about this recipe is we're working in vegetables, we're working in protein, we're working in a lot of the basics with the rice. It's just a well-rounded meal that you can feel good about putting on the table with your family.
Yeah, and it's comfort food. It's something that, unless you really don't like chicken,
Right.
you're not gonna appreciate. But this will hit home for a lot of folks.
Victor, tell me about some of the recipes you grew up on in Brazil.
A little different. I mean, we do have a similarity when it comes to the black beans, right? So it's a staple in Brazilian cuisine.
So
we,
good.
We inherited from the Africans, and the main difference that I would say is we use a good amount of meat into this,
Yeah.
as opposed to here, Cuban black beans. It's basically vegetables. Over there, you're talking about bacon. You're talking about sausage. You're talking about you're talking about smoked pork chop or smoked pork in general. Just on not the feijoada. This is just a regular black bean that you would eat Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to Saturday in Brazil, that's the feijoada day, and that's where restaurants serve it. And because you have, Saturday people don't work after lunch, or they don't work at all. So you have the time to nap. And then you will see not only the bacon, the sausage, but you'll see the tribes. You will see you'll see it all. You see it all. And it's a big spread. And it's a 3-hour event. And you're not planning on having a quick meal. You're planning to have basically an experience.
So if I ever go to Brazil again, I'm gonna make sure I'm there on a Saturday.
Yes.
That
Very
sounds
important.
like the day to be there in the
Yes,
kitchen.
it is. And it also brings a lot of people together because with that, you have not only the feijoada itself, but you have the appetizers, you have the caipirinha, which is our traditional Brazilian drink, and it's like I said, it's a whole experience.
Right. Right.
We can
Yeah,
test.
we can
All right.
definitely
All right.
try it
Like
now.
the chickens starting
One
to
more
get-
question. I know you said that we can and everything. Can we also use shrimp for this recipe?
You
Yeah.
could.
Absolutely.
That's good.
That
That's a-
would,
If you were using shrimp though, how you would wait to the very end?
Very
to
end.
Shrimp it.
yeah,
And the
so
shrimp cooks quickly, right?
yes,
So-
very quickly. So
So-
you just in the hot liquid itself, you pretty much,
You basically would make the sofrito. You would need some sort of liquid chicken stock. Chicken stock I mean, chicken and shrimp is a good marriage, by the way. I tend to say that a lot. So if you have a chicken stock, for instance, you use the chicken stock, and you make basically a sauce, and the shrimp when it goes in, it'll soak up all the flavors and it'll cook basically like really quickly. Yes. Please,
please
So,
try.
Are we getting close?
we're getting
We're
close.
pretty close.
And you add the potatoes.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, wow. That's amazing, and I can taste the juice from the chicken. too.
Yeah.
I mean, it really has flavor. in the
So notice
entire dish.
you taste the sear from the
I
chicken.
taste that. Yes, absolutely.
Because we are in a good consistency, liquid wise, I'm gonna go ahead and drain this water. We're not gonna
You
need.
don't need the extra
We
water.
don't need the extra water.
Right, but if you notice that your dish is coming together and it does need a little bit more liquid, go ahead and add a little bit at a time. We can get an overhead look at this right here, Austin. You can see how much liquid is actually boiling.
And you can see.
It's got a very stew-like consistency.
And once you add the potatoes, it'll also give it a nice richness because the potatoes themselves will also release their starch. And then it's just extra, it's extra good.
And you said the potatoes won't take long to cook, mainly because they're.
The dice small,
Right.
so you cook, if you were to cut them in quarters, then you have to add it.
Right,
As-
earlier, much
earlier.
earlier in the process.
And
Correct.
earlier than the chicken too.
Really?
So once it's already seared, the chicken kind of just needs to finish off in the sauce.
Right.
So yeah, definitely. And you'll notice the difference. Like if you add the potato earlier, it will get thicker.
Right,
faster.
because it's releasing the starch.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
So that way you might have to monitor the liquid and kind of see if you want to add stock or the potato water itself.
Right.
That whole setup.
So to have the chicken broth, and again, if you use the whole chicken, you can use that carcass to make the broth that will
Right.
cook. It's going to be a little bit longer process just to make the broth to cook it, but it's going to be well worth it.
It is well worth it. And so that's another time we should really have you guys back on and show how to make a chicken stock.
Oh,
Because
please.
that is such a nice thing to have frozen and
Yes.
ready to go. So that when you're making recipes like this, you've already got your homemade chicken stock that you can pull out of the freezer and put into.
And you can freeze it in the cubes.
Yeah, the ice
Yeah,
cube
that's true.
trays. I've seen that trick before. So you pour your chicken stock into an ice cube tray and let it freeze. And then once it's frozen, you can put that into a nice Ziploc bag and then you can take it out in portion for
Correct.
the recipe.
We are using a cast iron pan. Let's say you're really in a rush or you don't have time to tend to the chicken as we do. You could gather all the ingredients, do the sofrito, and then
Throw it in
finish-
the oven.
Finish it in the
in
oven.
the
Mhm.
oven, cover it.
Cover it. And that might be helpful too. So how long would you suggest that it go into the oven?
At 350, basically in half an hour.
Yeah.
45 minutes at the most. I mean, between half an hour and 45 minutes at the most.
Yeah.
Check, obviously use mitts.
Don't want to burn yourself.
Yes.
If you want to
yes.
keep it at like a saucier consistency, then I would definitely put aluminum foil and a lid, just so it kind of doesn't evaporate as much. Or you do it for about like 15 minutes out of the 30, and then you can take it off and just leave the lid on.
Right. Okay,
Yes,
good.
yes. We're getting ready almost.
So what do we have left in this recipe, guys?
Just finishing touches. Our olives
The
and the
peas.
peas.
And
And
now
then
the peas, are they frozen still? Do they need to be thawed or can
they
go
don't.
into this?
They can go in frozen because they cook so
They
fast.
cook very quickly.
And they've been sitting here for a little while, so by this time they are already thaw out, and they just need to be in at the very last minute because you want to still have a little bit of
Right,
a crunch to it.
right. And same with the potato. You don't want the potato mushy.
No,
You want
correct.
the
You kinda
potato
want a
still
nice
have
little-
texture.
A little bit of a bite.
Right.
A little bit of a
And
bite.
tenderness.
Our rice is basically so done, so we can fluff this up.
And so how are you planning to serve this? Typically, you put the rice on the plate first and then
Yeah,
this on top, or do you serve it on the side?
you can do it either way. If you do it on the side, obviously you won't get the sauce into the rice. But that's that's
But
where you
you
hear.
need the sauce in the rice. You need
That's
it.
correct.
It's like mashed potatoes. It needs some sort
That's-
of gravy.
Yeah.
that's correct.
You can't
That's
have
right.
rice without like a little bit of sauce.
Yes. Agreed. Okay, well, just to kind of recap what we've done here, we started by sauteing the chicken thighs and legs in a very hot pan. Once they developed a sear, we pulled them out and we started with the sofrito. So that was, again, the red pepper, the green pepper, the onion, and garlic.
Garlic
Okay.
and tomato as well.
And then we did the tomatoes, right? We let that kind of come up to a really nice juice. Then we put the chicken back in.
Mhm.
And now it's been cooking another 10 to 15 minutes.
Mhm.
If you don't have time to sit over a stove and watch it cook 10 to 15 minutes, the suggestion that Chef Victor has is turn your oven on to 350 and lid it and put it in the oven and let it go ahead and finish cooking off in the oven.
The good thing about cast iron skillets or pans also is that they retain a lot of heat. So they're actually I frequently see them in thrift stores and like Goodwill. So you can get a really nice cast iron pot for like $5. Yeah, which is the majority of my pots and pans at home. Even a Pyrex too. You find a bunch of Pyrexes at the Goodwill, which is my collection.
Yeah.
But yeah, they definitely help out, which is also good because they're oven safe. So you can pop them in the oven and kind of just
Yeah,
leave
you
it
do
as
want
is.
to make sure they're oven safe if you are doing the oven trick. I'm just gonna check on the potato, which it's 2 minutes, maybe more, maybe 3.
But notice, like, you see how the sauce is already
It's-
starting
it's
to
the-
change
the-
color?
Yes, I noticed that the sauce has actually become less red
Right.
and has become a little bit of a lighter color.
Correct.
The potato
The
definitely.
potato did that.
We can add our olives into it.
And that gives it a nice little salty
It's-
Oh, yeah.
punch too.
Just if you see that it's like slightly undersalted when you try it, just remember that you do have olives, or you could even do capers, depending on what you like.
Preference is all,
Yeah. It's really,
versatility.
it's versatility.
This name should be this dish should be named.
The versatile series.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, it does look good. It's very good. And you know, some people they're not big green olive fans.
Yeah.
But when you have it in a mixture like this, it really just it adds an accent to the entree. It's not
Interesting.
overpowering.
Yeah, because a lot of people I know and friends of mine hate olives. And then I'll make this and they have no
realize-
problem. And I am a huge olive fan, so I will throw brine in there. I will chop it up, and they devour it. I'm like, there's olives in
Yeah,
there.
that's-
And then last but not least,
These are our frozen peas.
frozen peas.
How much is that?
This is a whole cup.
Full cup of peas.
Yes. And again, if you don't like peas, you prefer corn, it's something that you can also do. We like peas, and they bring a lot of the color. Things will start popping out.
You can also add parsley as well if you like, or cilantro, which will top it off with a little bit. Again, all versatility, whatever you guys prefer, whatever is on sale too when you go to the supermarket.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's not how's everybody doing out there? You guys following along?
Yeah, we just got one more question. Can we use jalapenos to instead of the olives?
Perfect.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's a great point that I actually forgot to mention. If you
I
like,
that.
if you like your food to be on the spicy side, you can add jalapenos, you can add Fresno peppers, you can add the chili flakes at any point when you're making the sofrito at the very end to add that little extra
Yeah.
spice to it.
Would you recommend it either at the beginning or the end, or it just doesn't matter?
Either the begin. So if you were using out, that this is me. If I was to use a dry chili, I would go at the
The
beginning
beginning.
with the sofrito when you're making the when you have the onions, when you have the peppers,
Because it reconstitutes into the
and
sauce itself.
you will be able to measure out how much
Right.
heat you have on it
Right.
at that point. If you're adding fresh jalapenos or even the pickled jalapenos, you can leave that
Towards the end.
Towards the end. Also depends on your spice preference too. Like if you want it to cook down a little bit, then you can definitely add the fresh one at the beginning.
And
Or
it doesn't have to be
Right.
those peppers. It can be just plain old hot sauce.
Aleppo peppers also have like a little bit of spice, and you can get them dry, so it works out. You can add it to the dry rub too.
Sounds good.
All right, we're just about ready.
This looks amazing.
You gonna give one more check on potatoes? And I think
I just want to try it.
So what we're testing here is making sure that the potatoes are tender enough to eat, and that the chicken
The
is
chicken-
close to falling off the bone, so we
Correct.
know that it's
Correct.
cooked.
If you are using chicken boneless, this will be ready by now. If you're using thighs, this would be
It'll
ready.
start to
and
fall apart.
then the longer you cook, the more they're gonna start shredding. Which some people love it. It's gonna be on preference. If you want to keep whole pieces, then by the time the chicken is cooked, which the breast is already cooked, the thighs are just about cooked. Then and they're not completely like falling apart.
Right.
So you still have a little bit of a structure to the dish.
I'd say it's about done.
Yeah, it's just about. Any final questions on the audience?
Good. Is everybody doing well out there, cooking and getting it together?
Oh,
Some
yeah.
rice, you could also use any mashed good, it's traditional to use rice, but you could use a mashed potato, or you
Yeah.
could use a pasta, or you could use something else.
Definitely. Like I said,
Put it together.
the sauce itself, even if you want to just keep it and then you can make a pasta dish out of it or shred the chicken. Or if you are going to do the whole chicken route, you can break it apart. And, after you're done with your stock, you can take the chicken apart and then kind of save it for whatever it is that you want to do.
All right, I'm gonna get ready to plate.
Okay, we're getting ready to plate. So we had some cilantro, you said? that we
Yeah.
use as a garnish?
It's also nice. It just gives it a little bit of freshness. If you want, you can also like towards the end, just so it gives it a nice color. That's also kind of why we end with the peas, because you don't want them to cook down and then they kind of get like this yellowy color.
Right.
So it gives it a nice vibrant feel. And then you can either chop this up or you can put it on top. And the cilantro really, it complements everything that's in it already.
I always like to watch chefs prepare their plates. They know exactly what they're doing for presentation.
You want me to turn it up?
No, just keep going. I'll just turn it low.
So this is serving family style.
It is correct. If you wanted to do individual plate, you could. You can also provide that.
Just for the salsita.
There you go.
It's hot and it looks beautiful.
And you probably will have a good amount of sauce to pour over to make seconds and thirds. You can see also when this tendon starts to fall apart from the pull that down, that usually is an indication that the chicken is cooked. For the folks who didn't use skin on, you would have a leaner version of this. But like we said, we like the flavor that the the skin offers. Yes. Such one pour.
And give a little spoon bite.
So we're pouring all the sauce on top. Letting it soak into the chicken and rice. Looks beautiful. And this is a hearty meal.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I gotta believe that, families making this for dinner is definitely gonna have some leftovers, or they will not want to go hungry, I'm
And-
sure.
Yeah, like I said, it's definitely something where, yeah, you read my mind. Where if you need to hide vegetables from kids,
Yes,
You can
yes,
definitely-
it's an excellent point. Some families have picky eaters for the kids.
yeah,
So what Sachi mentioned, as in processing the vegetables on the sofrito, so you kind of hide,
Right.
it's perfect. Oh, I don't like onions. It's processed. You
It's
don't
already
even.
in there.
also, yeah, like you can throw carrots in there too. Like it again, super versatile, super, it's definitely a kid, throw your vitamins in them and
Yeah.
just kind of,
All right.
then if you have a little pepper, you can finish it on top or whatever, totally up to you. Or the pickled jalapenos if you want to make it a little spicy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, Sashi and Chef Victor, you guys have outdone yourself. Taken on the chef challenge, and we've been able to present a healthy, wonderful, fresh meal that we cooked in under an hour and under $20 to feed our families. So thank you for taking on the challenge.
It's a pleasure.
No worries.
Great. So stay tuned to next month. We will be bringing you another chef who's going to take on the challenge as well. It's Danny Canham, and he's from a restaurant here in Miami called Viola. Thank you for joining us.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.